Western Union, yes, the money transfer company, had the chance to buy Alexander Graham Bell's telephone patent for $100,000 in 1876. Their internal memo said, quote, "This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication." They passed. Today, Western Union is worth about $6 billion. Apple, a company that basically sells telephones, is worth $3 trillion. Good call, guys. Lord Kelvin, one of the greatest physicists ever, said radio has no future. This is the same guy who has a temperature scale named after him. Imagine being so confident and so wrong that people still say your name daily while listening to radio. Ernest Rutherford, the father of nuclear physics, literally the guy who split the atom, called the idea of atomic energy moonshine in 1933. 12 years later, we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. Whoops! The New York Times wrote that television will never be a serious competitor for radio. Plot twist, TV killed radio so hard that radio had to reinvent itself as podcasts with music. The US Navy's most brilliant minds concluded that submarines were a fascinating mechanical toy of no practical value. Today, nuclear submarines are literally one of the most powerful military assets on Earth. But sure, just a toy. The New York Times mocked Robert Goddard's rocket research, saying he lacks the knowledge ladled out daily in high schools. In 1969, the day after Apollo 11 launched, they published a correction. It only took them 49 years to admit they were wrong. Harry Warner of Warner Bros. Said, "Who the hell wants to hear actors talk?" Ironic, considering Warner Bros. Then pioneered the first talking movie, The Jazz Singer, that same year, and changed cinema forever. The president of the Michigan Savings Bank told Henry Ford's lawyer, "The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty." There are currently 1.4 billion cars on Earth. When was the last time you saw someone commute on a horse? Lord Kelvin strikes again. He dismissed X-rays as an elaborate hoax. My guy, you can literally go to any hospital right now and get one. Some hoax. Decca Records rejected the Beatles, saying, "Guitar groups are on their way out, and the Beatles have no future in show business." The Beatles went on to become the best-selling band in history with over 600 million records sold. Decca exec Dick Rowe, he's remembered for literally nothing else. Okay, we're just getting started and we've already got record executives, physicists, and the New York Times eating crow. But here's where it gets really good. The next batch involves predictions about everyday technology you use right now. Drop a comment if you've already spotted which expert on this list made the worst prediction. I'll pin the best answer. Ken Olsen, founder of Digital Equipment Corp., said, "There is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home." Ken, buddy, I have 3 computers in my home right now, and one of them just reminded me to buy toilet paper. Astronomer Clifford Stoll wrote a Newsweek article titled, "The Internet? Bah." He said online shopping would never work, and the internet was just a fad. Clifford, Amazon's revenue last year was $575 billion. You can now buy everything from groceries to houses online. Steve Ballmer, Microsoft CEO, said the iPhone had no chance of getting significant market share. The iPhone now makes up nearly half the US smartphone market and has generated over $1.5 trillion in revenue. Steve was also wrong about basically everything else, which is why he's no longer CEO. British astronomer Royal Richard Woolley called space travel utter bilge. Literally 13 years later, humans walked on the moon. Today, we have a car floating in space because Elon Musk thought it would be funny. President Grover Cleveland predicted that women's voting rights would threaten the integrity of the family. Women got the vote in 1920, and shockingly, families did not dissolve into chaos. Civilization marched on just fine. In fact, some might say it improved. Colin D.W. Griffith, legendary director, said, "Speaking movies are impossible. When a century has passed, all thought of our so-called speaking movies will have been abandoned. It's been a century, D.W. movies still talk. In fact, they won't shut up. Some Marvel movies are 3 hours long." Admiral William Leahy told President Truman that the atomic bomb was the biggest fool thing we have ever done. The bomb will never go off. Narrator voice, the bomb went off. Twice. The Literary Digest claimed that the ordinary horseless carriage is at present a luxury for the wealthy. It will never come into as common use as the bicycle. My brother in Christ, there are 300 million cars in America alone. Bicycles are cute, but they didn't get their own interstate system. The U.S. Department of War concluded that jet engines were impractical and unnecessary. Flash forward to today. Every major military has jet fighters, and you probably flew on a jet to your last vacation. But sure, impractical. After the 1983 video game crash, Time magazine declared video games a fad that had died out. The global gaming industry is now worth $200 billion annually, more than movies and music combined. Some fad. Notice a pattern here? The people making these predictions weren't random idiots. They were experts, CEOs, literal presidents. So what's happening? Well, there's actually a psychological reason humans are terrible at predicting the future, and I'll explain it at prediction number 15. But first, we need to talk about the predictions that didn't just age badly. They cost billions. IBM and Kodak both passed on the opportunity to produce Chester Carlson's photocopier. They said there was no market for it. Xerox took the deal and became a $7 billion company. IBM and Kodak executives probably still wake up in cold sweats. Fred Smith's Yale professor gave his business plan for FedEx a C grade, saying it wasn't feasible. FedEx is now worth $60 billion and delivers 14 million packages daily. I hope Fred sent his professor a package containing just that essay with an updated grade. Boston's mayor called the telephone an electric toy with no practical use. Boston now has some of the highest cell phone usage rates in America. Even their mayor uses one. The irony is delicious. Time magazine said remote shopping will never replace the real thing. Tell that to Amazon, which delivered 7.5 billion packages last year. People now buy groceries in their pajamas at 2 a.m. We're living in a hermit's paradise. Bankers predicted credit cards would never catch on because people prefer to pay with cash. The U.S. credit card industry processes $4 trillion annually. Some people haven't touched cash in years. Sony was so confident Betamax would dominate that they ignored VHS completely. VHS 1 became the standard, and then both got obliterated by DVDs, which got obliterated by streaming. The lesson? Everything dies, but hubris dies first. Steve Ballmer called Linux and open source software a cancer. Today, Microsoft's Azure cloud service runs on Linux, and Microsoft is one of the biggest contributors to open source projects. Steve's currently worth $145 billion, so he's probably over it. This is the one I promised. Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix for $50 million in 2000. They laughed Netflix out of the room, saying, "No one wants movies mailed to them." Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Netflix is worth $280 billion. The Blockbuster executives didn't just miss, they missed so hard it became a Harvard Business School case study on corporate failure. Yahoo rejected the chance to buy Google for $1 million. Then they could have bought it for $5 billion in 2002 and said no again. Google is now worth $1.8 trillion. Yahoo doesn't really exist anymore. This might be the most expensive no in business history. The same Decca Records that rejected the Beatles also rejected the Rolling Stones. At this point, Decca's talent scouts should have been arrested for crimes against music. The Stones have sold 200+ million albums. Decca exec Dick Rowe appears on this list twice. Legend. Alright, we're halfway through and I need to know, which prediction shocked you the most so far? Blockbuster turning down Netflix? Yahoo saying no to Google? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're enjoying this journey through humanity's worst predictions, smash that subscribe button because we're about to get into the weird predictions. And I mean genuinely bizarre. Oh, and the reason humans are so bad at this? It's called present bias. We assume the future will be just like today, but slightly shinier. We can't imagine truly revolutionary change. Keep that in mind for these next ones. Paul Ehrlich's book The Population Bomb predicted mass starvation and societal collapse by 1980 due to overpopulation. He said hundreds of millions would die in the 1970s. Instead, the Green Revolution happened, food production soared, and the global population went from 3 billion to 8 billion. Whoops! Experts predicted we'd run out of oil by 2005. Instead, fracking technology unlocked massive reserves, and now we have more oil than ever. The problem isn't scarcity, it's that we literally can't stop finding more of the stuff. Every tech company swore 3D TVs were the future. Manufacturers pumped billions into the technology. Then consumers said, no thanks, we don't want to wear stupid glasses in our living room. And 3D TV died completely by 2017. The people have spoken. Google Glass was supposed to revolutionize how we interact with technology. Instead, people who wore them got called glass holes. They were banned from bars and theaters, and Google quietly murdered the consumer version. Turns out people don't like cameras strapped to your face in public. Who knew? Steve Jobs said the Segway would be as big a deal as the PC. The inventor predicted cities would be rebuilt around them. Instead, they became the official vehicle of mall cops and awkward tourist groups. The company that made them stopped production in 2020. Tech journalists declared QR codes a failed experiment that nobody used. Then COVID-19 hit. Restaurants went digital, and suddenly everyone's scanning QR codes for menus. One pandemic completely reversed a technology's fortune. Futurists predicted underwater cities by the year 2000. Jacques Cousteau said we'd farm the ocean floor. We'd live in pods beneath the waves. Instead, we went to space and can barely keep the oceans clean. Underwater hotels exist, but that's about it. Every futurist from the 1950s to the 1980s promised flying cars by 2000. We got traffic jams. Turns out humans can barely handle driving in 2 dimensions. Adding a third would be apocalyptic. Also, imagine a fender bender at 500 feet. No thanks. The 90s promised VR would replace TVS and PCS. Companies like Virtual Boy crashed hard. It's 2025 and VR is cool for gaming, but hasn't replaced anything. Most people use their VR headsets twice, then shove them in a closet. Technology would eliminate paper, they said. Offices would be digital paradises, they said. Instead, paper consumption increased until the mid-2000s because people printed every email. We're closer now, but it took 40 years longer than predicted. Okay, so far we've covered technology, business, and some truly weird predictions. But now we're getting to the predictions that are actually concerning, the ones where being wrong had consequences. These next 10 aren't just funny, they're scary. Multiple oil executives and politicians predicted that climate change was a hoax that would disappear. The hottest years on record have all occurred after 2010. The science was clear 40 years ago, but denial cost us precious time. Politicians and pundits predicted COVID-19 would vanish quickly, it was just the flu, and masks were unnecessary. Over 7 million people died globally. This might be the most consequential bad prediction in modern history. Economists and realtors said housing prices only go up and subprime mortgages are safe. Then 2008 happened, the global economy collapsed, and millions lost their homes. Some people are still recovering financially. Doctors, actual doctors, appeared in cigarette ads saying smoking was healthy and could soothe your throat. Tobacco companies insisted for decades that cigarettes weren't addictive or harmful. Cigarettes kill 8 million people every year. This might be the most evil wrong prediction ever. Experts predicted Y2K would crash every computer, collapse the power grid, and send us back to the Stone Age. People hoarded food and water. January 1st, 2000 arrived and basically nothing happened. To be fair, programmers worked incredibly hard to prevent disaster, but the public panic was overblown. Deep breath. That was heavy. But we're almost at the end, and the final predictions are actually hopeful in a weird way. They remind us that humans are terrible at predicting doom, but we're also terrible at predicting greatness. And honestly, I'll take that trade. In 1996, Robert Metcalfe, the inventor of Ethernet, literally a founding father of the internet, predicted the internet would catastrophically collapse in 1996 and become a fad. When it didn't, he literally blended his printed prediction in a blender and drank it. That's accountability. The New York Times wrote in 1903 that human flight would take 1 to 10 million years to develop. The Wright brothers flew that same year. The Times didn't issue a correction until 1969, after we'd already been to the moon. Moral Panic declared jazz music would corrupt children and destroy civilization. Jazz became America's greatest cultural export and birthed nearly every modern music genre. Every generation thinks the next generation's music will end the world. It never does. For centuries, this wasn't just a prediction, it was accepted truth. Challenging it could get you killed. Then science happened. Today, flat earthers exist, but they're wrong in ways we can prove with a $20 weather balloon. Progress is beautiful. Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, supposedly said this in 1943. While the exact quote is disputed, the sentiment was real. Early computers were massive room-sized machines. IBM thought only governments and big universities would need them. Today, there are roughly 2 billion personal computers and 6.8 billion smartphones on Earth. We carry more computing power in our pockets than existed in the entire world in 1943. Watson's IBM went on to become a tech giant because they adapted and changed their mind, which is the real lesson here. So what did we learn? That experts are wrong all the time? Sure. That predicting the future is impossible? Basically. But here's the thing. These predictions failed because they underestimated human creativity, adaptability, and stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Every person who said humans will never fly or computers have no future was technically making a reasonable assumption based on what they knew. They just couldn't imagine what we'd figure out next. The real danger isn't being wrong. It's being so confident you're right that you stop adapting. Blockbuster, Yahoo, Kodak, they died because they couldn't imagine being wrong. So here's my prediction about the future. Whatever you think is impossible right now, someone's going to do it. Whatever technology you think is stupid, it might change everything. And whatever you're absolutely certain about, you're probably at least a little bit wrong. What prediction from this list shocked you most? What do you think people today are dead wrong about? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them all. And if you made it this far, do me a favor and subscribe. You've just watched 20 minutes about people being wrong. Don't be wrong about whether this channel is worth following. Thanks for watching. Remember, the future is impossible to predict, but it's fun to try. See you in the next one.